You are listening to KSG podcast. This is a short, crisp, concise, exam-oriented, edited editorial for civil services aspirants. In this podcast, we're going to talk about starting blue sky gazing. The source for the content is Tyler Cowen's article for Bloomberg. The nuclear fusion startup Helion, which announced that it has raised $500 million, says it has developed new technologies that may make nuclear fusion viable practically, economically, and environmentally. It is too early to tell if its claims will pan out, but there have been so many breakthroughs lately that they cannot be dismissed. The possibility of carbon free energy generation raises a seldom discussed question. Just how much would it change the world if cheap and clean energy sources were truly abundant? Keep in mind that one source of cheap, clean power will lead to others. Maybe nuclear fusion cannot be used to fly a jet plane, but perhaps it could be used to produce relatively clean hydrogen fuel, which could then be deployed in ways fusion could not. A chain reaction would occur, eventually bringing cheap, clean energy across the country. As an inveterate traveler, my first thought is that I would be able to get everywhere much more quickly. How about a supersonic or perhaps suborbital flight from Washington to Tokyo? A trip to Antarctica would no longer seem so daunting. Many remote places would be transformed. One hopes for the better. Next in line, desalinating water would become cheap and easy, enabling the transformation and terraforming of many landscapes. Nevada would boom, though a vigorous environmental debate might ensue. Just how many deserts should we keep around? Over time, Mali and the Middle East would become much greener. How about heating and cooling? It might be possible to manipulate temperatures outdoors, so Denmark in January and Dubai in August would no longer be so unbearable. It wouldn't be too hard to melt snow or generate a cooling breeze. In general, in an energy world free of carbon emissions, the stakes would be higher for a large subset of decisions. If we can clean up the air, great. If not, the overall increase in radical change would create a whole host of new problems, one of which would be more methane emissions. The race between the destructive and restorative powers of technology would become all the more consequential. The value of high quality institutions would be much greater, which might be a worry in many parts of the world. At least in the short run, fossil fuel rich nations such as Saudi Arabia and Russia would be the losers. Over the longer run, commodity producing nations would have to worry, as nations like China might find it easier to grow more of their own soybeans and stop buying from Brazil and Argentina. Drought stricken areas with deserts and water problems, but decent institutions could be among the winners. Perhaps the US led West would continue to gain economically on the East. All that extra land could be put to more productive use, but improving New Jersey might prove tougher. As is often the case with new technology, the challenges are real, but the potential is enormous. I, for one, am looking forward to whenever this new world comes to pass. That's it for this podcast. Thank you so much for listening. To join KSG India courses and to crack the IELTS exam, visit ksgindia.com. You can also get a PDF of this podcast on ksgindia.com.